Joseph was 10 years old when life taught him a lesson many adults never learn: that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the first to give up on you. Before tragedy struck, Joseph had lived a simple but happy life with his parents in a small neighborhood. Their house was tiny, but it was always full of laughter. His father used to say jokingly, "Joseph, one day you will become a big man." Joseph would puff out his chest proudly. "How big?" His father would spread his arms wide. "So big that people will need binoculars to see your success." Joseph didn't fully understand what that meant, but he loved hearing it. But happiness sometimes disappears without warning. One rainy evening, Joseph's parents were returning from a nearby town when their car lost control on the slippery road. The accident was devastating. Joseph didn't fully understand what had happened until he saw the worried faces of neighbors and the quiet whispers around him. Within days, his world collapsed. He was now an orphan, a house without love. A distant relative named Auntie Beatrice reluctantly agreed to take Joseph in. Her house was bigger than Joseph's old home, but it felt colder. Very cold. The first morning there, Joseph woke up early and quietly helped sweep the compound. When Auntie Beatrice came outside, she squinted at him suspiciously. "Why are you sweeping?" Joseph smiled nervously. "I wanted to help." She shrugged. "Well, since you like helping, wash the dishes too." Joseph nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am." From that day forward, Joseph became the house helper. He washed plates, he cleaned floors, he fetched water, he ran errands. Meanwhile, her two children spent their afternoons watching television and eating snacks. One afternoon, Joseph carefully washed a mountain of plates in the kitchen. Auntie Beatrice walked in and inspected them like a strict military officer. She held one plate up to the light. Joseph swallowed nervously. "What is this?" she snapped. Joseph leaned closer. I don't know, ma'am." She pointed dramatically at a tiny water spot. "You see this? This means you didn't wash properly." Joseph blinked slowly. "It's just water." "What did you say?" "Nothing, ma'am." The goat incident. One evening, Joseph was washing plates again when Auntie Beatrice stormed into the kitchen. "Joseph." "Yes, ma'am." She picked up a spoon and shook her head in disbelief. "This spoon is not shining." Joseph looked at it. It looked perfectly normal. And Auntie Beatrice sighed loudly. "Humph. Even goats can wash plates better than you." Joseph froze. His brain tried to process that statement. Goats wash plates? He imagined a goat standing beside him wearing an apron and holding a sponge. Joseph almost laughed, but he knew better, so he kept quiet. The breaking point. Months pass. Joseph worked hard, hoping things would improve, but Auntie Beatrice's patience only grew thinner. One evening, she called him into the living room. Her arms were crossed. "Joseph." "Yes, ma'am." "I cannot continue feeding you." Joseph's heart sank. "But I help with the house." "That's not enough." "I'll work harder." She shook her head firmly. "No, pack your things." Joseph stood there frozen. His things were only a small worn bag with 2 shirts and 1 pair of trousers. He looked at her one last time. "Please, I'll try harder." But her voice was cold. Out. The street. Joseph stepped outside slowly. The door shut behind him with a loud bang. That sound echoed in his chest. He stood there, staring at the road. Cars passed. People walked by. No one noticed the small boy holding a bag. Night slowly fell. Joseph walked until he found a small roadside shop with a wooden bench. He sat down quietly. His stomach growled. His eyes filled with tears. But Joseph wiped them away. His father once told him something important. A real man can cry, but he must never give up. Joseph looked up at the dark sky. "I won't give up," he whispered. He didn't know it yet, but that lonely boy sitting under a roadside shop would one day become a billionaire CEO whose delivery empire would change the industry forever, and the world would know his name. Joseph curled up on the old wooden bench outside the closed roadside shop. His small bag rested under his head as a pillow. Cars occasionally passed, their headlights briefly lighting up his tired face before disappearing into the darkness again. Joseph tried to sleep, but hunger kept him awake. His stomach growled loudly. He sighed. "I wish hunger could also sleep," he muttered quietly to himself. Eventually, exhaustion defeated hunger, and the boy drifted into a restless sleep. A kind pair of eyes. Morning came with the sounds of early street life. Vendors setting up their stalls, motorcycles buzzing past, people calling out to customers. Joseph slowly opened his eyes. The smell of fresh roasted corn filled the air. He sat up and saw an elderly woman arranging corn neatly on a small charcoal grill. Her back was slightly bent, and her gray hair was tied neatly in a scarf. She noticed Joseph staring. The old woman squinted at him. "Young man," she called. Joseph looked behind him, thinking she was talking to someone else. "Yes, you," she said. Joseph walked over slowly. "Yes, ma'am?" She studied him carefully. "You slept here?" Joseph nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Where is your home?" Joseph hesitated. "I don't have one." The woman sighed deeply. "What about your parents?" Joseph lowered his head. "They died." For a moment, the old woman said nothing. Then she nodded gently. She handed him a piece of roasted corn. "Eat." Joseph stared at it like it was gold. "Thank you, ma'am." He ate quickly but tried to be polite. Mama Grace chuckled. "Slow down. The corn is not running away." Joseph smiled shyly. "Mama Grace." The woman introduced herself. "My name is Mama Grace." Joseph nodded respectfully. "My name is Joseph." Mama Grace pointed to the empty bench near her small stall. "Sit there." Joseph obeyed. She continued roasting corn while keeping an eye on him. After a while, she asked casually, "So, if you don't have a home, where were you planning to go?" Joseph shrugged. "I didn't think that far." Mama Grace laughed. "Ah, a boy with no plan. Dangerous combination." Joseph scratched his head. "I planned to, maybe find work." At 10 years old, Joseph smiled weakly. "I'm strong." Mama Grace looked at his skinny arms and laughed loudly. "If you are strong, then I am the governor of Lagos." Joseph laughed too. For the first time in a long while, he felt warm inside. A small offer. Later that afternoon, Mama Grace packed her remaining corn. Joseph helped her carry the charcoal stove. She watched him carefully. "You are hard-working." Joseph shrugged. "I like helping." Mama Grace nodded thoughtfully. "Well, my house is small." Joseph waited quietly. "My roof leaks during heavy rain." Joseph said nothing. "And sometimes I can only afford one meal." Joseph smiled. "That's okay." She looked at him seriously. "But my heart is big." Joseph's eyes widened. "You mean I can stay?" Mama Grace pretended to think. Joseph held his breath. She finally said, "But you must help me sell corn." Joseph jumped up happily. "Yes, ma'am." She laughed. "Calm down. I haven't even shown you the house yet." The small house. Mama Grace's house was tiny, very tiny. It had one bedroom, a small sitting area, and a kitchen that looked like it had been built 50 years ago. But it was clean, very clean. Joseph looked around in amazement. "This place is beautiful." Mama Grace laughed. "Beautiful? Wait until the rain starts leaking through the roof. Then we will put buckets." Mama Grace nodded. "Good thinking." The first night. That evening they shared a simple meal of rice and beans. Joseph ate happily. "Mama Grace?" "Yes." "This is the best food I've eaten in months." She raised an eyebrow. "Are you praising my cooking or insulting your previous cook?" Joseph laughed. "Both." Mama Grace shook her head. "You are a funny boy." After dinner, Joseph helped wash the plates. Mama Grace watched him carefully. "You wash plates better than my nephew." Joseph smiled proudly. "At least goats are not better than me." Mama Grace blinked. "Goats?" Joseph explained the story of Auntie Beatrice. Mama Grace laughed so hard she nearly dropped a plate. "Goats washing plates? That woman is crazy." Joseph laughed too. A new beginning. That night Joseph lay on a small mattress on the floor. It wasn't comfortable, but it felt safe. Before sleeping, Mama Grace stood by the doorway. "Joseph?" "Yes, Mama?" "You can stay here as long as you want." Joseph felt his chest tighten with emotion. "Thank you," she nodded gently. "Everyone deserves a second chance." Joseph closed his eyes with a small smile. He didn't know it yet, but the small house with the leaking roof and the old woman selling roasted corn had just become the foundation of a future billionaire's story. And Mama Grace had just become the mother he never expected to find. Years passed quickly. Joseph grew from the skinny little boy who once slept on a roadside bench into a tall, energetic young man. By the time he turned 18, Joseph had developed two things that would later change his life forever: a strong work ethic and a mind that never stopped observing. Mama Grace was still selling roasted corn every morning, but Joseph insisted on helping as much as he could. One morning, she noticed him staring thoughtfully at the busy road. Cars moved quickly. Motorcycles weaved between traffic. Delivery riders rushed from one street to another. "What are you thinking about?" Mama Grace asked, while turning the corn over the charcoal. Joseph pointed at a rider speeding past. "That man delivers packages all day." "Yes," Mama Grace replied, "and people depend on him to bring their things." Mama Grace nodded. "That is called a job." Joseph smiled slightly. "I think I want that job." The first job. A week later, Joseph walked into a small delivery company called Swift Drop Logistics. The office was simple: plastic chairs, a wooden desk, and a wall filled with delivery schedules. The manager, Mr. Bello, looked up from his paperwork when Joseph walked in. "Yes?" Joseph stood straight. "Sir, I want to work as a delivery rider." Mr. Bello looked at him carefully. "Do you have experience?" Joseph shook his head. "No, sir." "Do you have a motorcycle?" Joseph hesitated. "No, sir." Mr. Bello sighed. "So what exactly do you have?" Joseph smiled. "Determination." The manager stared at him for a moment. Then he laughed. "Well, determination cannot carry packages." Joseph scratched his head. "I have a bicycle." Mr. Bello blinked. "A bicycle?" Joseph nodded confidently. "Yes, sir." The manager shook his head but chuckled. "You know what? Fine." Joseph's eyes widened. "Really? You can start as a bicycle delivery boy. Small packages only." Joseph bowed slightly. "Thank you, sir." Mr. Bello waved him away. "Just don't be late. Customers hate late deliveries." Joseph smiled. "I won't be." The legendary bicycle. Joseph's bicycle was special, not in a good way. It was old, very old. The chain squeaked, the seat tilted slightly to the left, and the bell sounded like a dying chicken. Cring, crook. Mama Grace stared at it when Joseph brought it home. "Joseph." "Yes, Mama?" "This bicycle looks like it retired 10 years ago." Joseph laughed. "It still works." Mama Grace shook her head. "If it collapses on the road, don't come crying to me." Joseph grinned. "I'll deliver faster than motorcycles." Mama Grace burst out laughing. "With that bicycle, the motorcycle riders will greet you next week. The fastest delivery boy." But Joseph proved everyone wrong. He woke up before sunrise. He studied the city roads. He memorized shortcuts. He avoided traffic-heavy streets. Within weeks, Joseph became the fastest delivery boy in the company. Customers started noticing him. One afternoon, he knocked on a customer's door. The man opened it and looked shocked. "You're already here? I just placed this order." Joseph smiled proudly. "Yes, sir." The man checked his phone again. "This says 15 minutes. Joseph shrugged. "I came in 10. The man laughed. "You flew here?" Joseph pointed at his bicycle. "Advanced technology." The man stared at the squeaky bicycle. "Advanced? That thing looks like it survived World War II. Joseph grinned. "But it delivers." Customers loved him. Joseph wasn't just fast. He was polite, friendly, and surprisingly funny. One day, a woman opened the door and said, "You again? You delivered my food yesterday." Joseph nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She crossed her arms. "Are you following me?" Joseph pretended to think. "Only for delivery purposes." The woman burst out laughing. "You're funny. I like you." She tipped him generously. Another customer once said, "You should be a comedian instead of a delivery boy." Joseph replied, "Comedy doesn't pay for Mama Grace's corn." The man laughed. "Fair enough." The secret notebook. But Joseph had a habit nobody noticed. Every night he sat at the small table in Mama Grace's house, writing in a small notebook. Routes, delivery times, customer behavior, company processes. He studied everything. Mama Grace eventually noticed. One night she leaned over his shoulder. "What are you writing every night like a university professor?" Joseph smiled. "I'm studying." "Studying what?" "The delivery business." Mama Grace raised an eyebrow. "You are a delivery boy. Why study it?" Joseph closed the notebook slowly. "Because one day," he looked up confidently, "I will start my own delivery company." Mama Grace stared at him for a long moment. Then she burst into laughter. "You? A big company owner?" Joseph nodded calmly. "Yes." Mama Grace wiped tears from her eyes. "Joseph, I sell corn by the roadside." Joseph smiled. "And one day you'll sell corn from a factory." Mama Grace laughed again. "A corn factory. Listen to this boy." But Joseph's eyes were serious. Very serious. The dream had already started growing, and the squeaky bicycle was just the beginning of something much bigger. By the time Joseph turned 23, he had become the most reliable delivery worker at Swift Drop Logistics. Everyone knew him. Customers asked for him by name. Shop owners trusted him. Even the company manager, Mr. Bello, had started depending on him. But Joseph wasn't satisfied, not because he hated the job. In fact, he loved it. He loved the rush of delivering packages on time. He loved seeing customers smile when their orders arrived quickly. He loved the energy of the business. But deep inside, Joseph felt something bigger growing. A dream. A dangerous dream. The observer. Most delivery riders finished work and went home to rest. Joseph did something different. He observed everything. How orders came in. How dispatchers assigned riders. Why some deliveries were delayed. Why customers sometimes complained. One afternoon, he overheard two dispatch workers arguing. "This order should have gone to the nearest rider," one shouted. The other rolled his eyes. "I just picked the first name on the list." Joseph quietly listened while pretending to organize packages. In his mind he thought, "This system is inefficient." Later that day, a customer called angrily. "Why is my package late?" The dispatcher looked confused. "We sent a rider already." Joseph checked the delivery sheet. The rider had been assigned a route on the other side of town. Joseph sighed quietly. Wrong routing again. That night, Joseph wrote more notes in his notebook. Routes could be optimized. Orders could be grouped by location. Drivers could save fuel. Customers would get faster service. Joseph's ideas kept growing. Mama Grace's doubts. At home, Mama Grace noticed Joseph thinking deeply again. She placed a plate of food in front of him. "You look like someone planning to steal a bank." Joseph laughed. "No, Mama." "Then why are you always thinking like this?" Joseph opened his notebook. "I think delivery companies are doing things the wrong way." Mama Grace blinked. "You work there." "Yes. So why criticize them?" Joseph smiled. "Because one day I'll build a better one." Mama Grace shook her head slowly. "You and this big dream again." Joseph grinned. "You'll see." She pointed her spoon at him. "Joseph." "Yes, Mama?" "If you become rich, don't forget this leaking house." Joseph laughed. "I'll buy you 10 houses." Mama Grace snorted. "I don't want 10 houses." Joseph tilted his head. "What do you want?" She smiled mischievously. "A giant corn factory." Joseph burst out laughing. Deal. The big decision. 2 years later, Joseph had saved a small amount of money. It wasn't much, but it was something. One evening at work, Mr. Bello called him into the office. "Joseph." "Yes, sir. You've been our best delivery rider for years." Joseph nodded politely. "Thank you, sir." Mr. Bello leaned back in his chair. "I want to promote you." Joseph blinked. "Promote me?" "Yes, supervisor. It was a good opportunity. More pay, less riding, more authority." Most people would have accepted immediately. But Joseph hesitated. Mr. Bello noticed. "What's wrong?" Joseph took a deep breath. Sir, I appreciate the offer, but… Joseph looked down briefly. I'm planning to start my own delivery business. Silence filled the room. Mr. Bellows stared at him for several seconds. Then he burst out laughing. You? Joseph nodded calmly. Yes, sir. With what money? Joseph shrugged. I'll start small. Mr. Bellows shook his head. Joseph, this business is not easy. I know. You need vehicles. I know. You need technology. I know. Mr. Bellows leaned forward. Then why take the risk? Joseph smiled confidently. Because I've been studying this business for 5 years. The manager stopped laughing. Joseph continued calmly. I know what works and what doesn't. Mr. Bellows studied him carefully. Then he sighed. You're serious? Yes, sir. The announcement. That evening, Joseph went home with a strange mixture of excitement and fear. Mama Grace was preparing dinner when he walked in. You're late, she said. Joseph sat down. Mama, she looked at his serious expression. What happened? Joseph took a deep breath. I'm leaving my job. Mama Grace dropped the spoon. You're what? I'm starting my own delivery company. She stared at him like he had just announced he was moving to the moon. With what money? Joseph smiled nervously. A little savings. That's not enough. I know. Mama Grace placed her hands on her head dramatically. Joseph, please don't become a homeless businessman. Joseph laughed. I won't. She sighed deeply. This dream of yours is dangerous. Joseph nodded. Yes, but… He looked at her warmly. Every big success starts with a dangerous dream. Mama Grace sat down slowly. After a long silence, she said, If you fail… Joseph waited. You can always come back and sell corn with me. Joseph smiled. Deal. But deep inside, Joseph had already made up his mind. He wasn't going back. The boy with the squeaky bicycle was about to take the biggest risk of his life. The day Joseph resigned from Swift Drop Logistics felt strange. For 5 years, that place had been his world. The noisy dispatch room, the stacks of packages, the riders rushing in and out, and of course, his legendary squeaky bicycle. When Joseph wheeled it out of the company gate for the last time, one of the riders shouted, Joseph, where are you going with the museum bicycle? Joseph laughed. Retiring it soon. Another rider shook his head. You're making a mistake leaving this job. Joseph shrugged. Maybe. Then he added confidently, or maybe I'm starting something bigger. They laughed, thinking he was joking. But Joseph wasn't joking. Not even a little. The first investment. Joseph's savings were small, very small. After paying basic expenses, he had just enough to buy one second-hand motorcycle. The motorcycle dealer looked suspicious when Joseph arrived. You want to buy this bike? Yes. The man scratched his beard. It's old. Joseph nodded. I know. It's not very fast. I know. The dealer leaned closer. So why buy it? Joseph smiled. Because it's the beginning of my company. The man blinked. Company? Joseph nodded proudly. Yes. What's the name? Joseph paused dramatically. Then he said, Flash Route Delivery. The dealer laughed. With this motorcycle? Flash Route? Joseph patted the bike. Don't underestimate her. The first office. Joseph couldn't afford a real office, so he turned Mama Grace's small sitting room into his headquarters. A tiny table became his dispatch desk. A cheap laptop became the operations center. A whiteboard hung on the wall with delivery notes. Mama Grace stood in the middle of the room staring around. Joseph? Yes, Mama. Is my house now a company? Joseph nodded. Yes. She sighed. So if customers come here, should I offer them roasted corn? Joseph grinned. That's actually good marketing. Mama Grace laughed. Then your company will smell like barbecue. The first customer. Starting a business was harder than Joseph expected. Very hard. For the first 2 weeks, no one called. No orders, no deliveries, just silence. One afternoon, Mama Grace walked into the room and saw Joseph staring sadly at the phone. Any customers? Joseph shook his head. No. Mama Grace thought for a moment. Then she shouted toward the street. Delivery service. Fast delivery. Joseph nearly fell off his chair. Mama? What? You can't shout like that. Why not? Joseph laughed. Because this isn't a corn market. But surprisingly, her shouting worked. A small shop owner from down the street walked in. You people do delivery? Joseph jumped up instantly. Yes, sir. The man handed him a small package. Take this to the next town. Joseph nodded eagerly. I'll deliver it immediately. Mama Grace whispered, Your first customer. Joseph smiled. Yes. The legendary first delivery. Joseph put on his helmet and started the motorcycle. The engine coughed loudly. Kurr, kurr. Mama Grace frowned. Joseph, if that motorcycle dies on the road, push it home. Joseph laughed. It won't die. But Joseph delivered the package successfully, and he returned with his first payment. It wasn't much, but it was the beginning. Joseph held the money proudly. Mama Grace looked impressed. Your company has made profit. Joseph smiled. First step. Growth begins. Word slowly started spreading. Joseph was fast, reliable, polite. Shop owners began calling him regularly. Soon one motorcycle wasn't enough. Joseph saved every profit. Within a year, he bought 3 more motorcycles, then 7, then 20. He hired riders and trained them carefully. Always be respectful to customers, Joseph told them. Deliver fast. And most importantly, he pointed seriously. No excuses. One rider raised his hand jokingly. What if the motorcycle explodes? Joseph shrugged. Deliver the package first, then explode. Everyone burst into laughter. The big break. 3 years later, a major online store needed a reliable delivery partner. Many companies applied. Joseph applied too, but his company was still small. The interview panel looked skeptical. Your company has only 20 riders, one executive said. Joseph nodded. Yes. Other companies have hundreds. Joseph smiled confidently. But we are faster. The executives exchanged glances. Prove it. Joseph grinned. Give me a test delivery. They did. Joseph's team delivered 30% faster than the competitors. The contract was awarded to Flash Route Delivery. That single deal changed everything. Within 5 years, Joseph's company expanded across multiple cities. Within 10 years, Flash Route became one of the largest delivery networks in the country. And Joseph, the boy who once slept on a roadside bench, the delivery rider with a squeaky bicycle, became a billionaire CEO. Back at the small house, one evening Joseph visited Mama Grace's old house. She was still roasting corn outside. He walked over quietly. Mama. She turned and smiled. Ah, Mr. Billionaire. Joseph laughed. You started calling me that again. Mama Grace handed him roasted corn. Businessman or billionaire, you still owe me something. Joseph raised an eyebrow. What? She grinned proudly. My corn factory. Joseph laughed loudly. Don't worry, Mama. He looked at the busy city skyline. It's coming. And this time, he meant it. By the time Joseph turned 30, his company, Flash Route Delivery, had become a household name. Orders poured in from every corner of the country. Cities, towns, even remote villages relied on Joseph's network. But with success came a new dream. A home that reflected not just wealth, but the journey, the struggle, and the vision that brought him here. Arrival at the mansion. Joseph's new mansion sat atop a hill overlooking the city, a glittering jewel of modern architecture. The walls gleamed white with accents of brushed steel. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the sunset, making it look like the house was floating in gold light. The driveway was long and curved, lined with neatly trimmed hedges and tall lanterns. A sleek black sports car purred as Joseph drove past it, and his security gates slid open automatically. He paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. From a squeaky bicycle to this, he muttered, smiling. The living room. The front door opened into a grand living room that looked like it belonged in a design magazine. Floating glass staircase spiraled up to the second floor. Cream-colored leather sofas sat around a low marble coffee table. A massive chandelier made of hundreds of hanging crystal strands sparkled overhead. Minimalist wall art, abstract splashes of gold and black, gave the room an elegant yet edgy feel. Joseph ran his hand along the smooth sofa. "Finally, comfort without squeaks," he muttered. He chuckled, thinking of Mama Grace's words. "Joseph, don't buy a chandelier you can't clean." The kitchen was a marvel. Smart refrigerator that tracked groceries. Voice-activated oven that preheated itself on command. Hidden cabinets that opened at a wave of the hand. A marble island big enough for 10 people to gather. Mama Grace walked in, eyes wide. "Joseph, this kitchen looks like it could cook for a king." Joseph smiled. "Or feed a whole city." She laughed. "And what about me? Am I allowed to touch anything?" Joseph grinned. "You can touch everything, except the smart fridge. It gets moody when strangers open it." Mama Grace narrowed her eyes. "Moody fridge? This house has a fridge that sulks?" Joseph laughed. "Yes, Mama, just like me when I don't get my coffee." The bedrooms and private spaces. Upstairs, Joseph had designed his personal sanctuary. A master bedroom with floor-to-ceiling glass walls overlooking the skyline. Minimalist furniture in shades of cream, white, and charcoal gray. A walk-in closet that could rival a boutique. A bathroom with a freestanding tub and rainfall shower. Each space was designed for both luxury and efficiency, a nod to Joseph's entrepreneurial mind. Even his home office reflected his personality. Glass walls that could become opaque at a touch for privacy. Multiple screens for monitoring company operations. A corner dedicated to his first notebook, framed and displayed. The garden. Outside, the garden was a mix of elegance and nostalgia. Manicured lawns with soft lighting. A small orchard with mango, guava, and pawpaw trees. In the corner, a tiny patch of corn, Joseph's nod to Mama Grace's roasted corn stall. Mama Grace laughed when she saw it. "Joseph, you actually planted corn." He nodded proudly. "Never forget where it all started, Mama." She shook her head, smiling. "And if I see the deer stealing it, I'm blaming you. I'll hire a deer guard." First family visit. The first time Mama Grace stepped inside the mansion, she was speechless. "Mama," Joseph said gently, "welcome home." Mama Grace walked slowly through the living room, touching the sofa and peeking at the chandelier. "Joseph, this house, it's too much." Joseph laughed. "Not too much, just enough to show that hard work pays off." She shook her head. "Billionaire or not, don't forget, I still want that corn factory." Joseph held her hand. "You'll get it, and I'll make sure it's the biggest in the country." Mama Grace laughed until tears came to her eyes. "From a boy with a squeaky bicycle to this mansion, I knew you could do it, Joseph." Joseph smiled, looking out at the city below. "Yes, Mama, but this mansion, it's not just for me. It's a reminder that anything is possible if you dare to dream." And in that moment, surrounded by modern luxury, glass, marble, and memories of the streets he once walked, Joseph knew one thing for sure. The journey had been worth every struggle, and the best was yet to come. Joseph's story reminds us of something powerful. Your beginning does not determine your ending. From a boy abandoned on the street, to a delivery rider with a squeaky bicycle, to a billionaire CEO with a global company, Joseph proved that hard work, courage, and the right heart can change any destiny. But his greatest success wasn't the mansion, the money, or the business empire. It was never forgetting the woman who gave him a chance when the world turned its back on him. So remember this: sometimes all someone needs to succeed is one person who believes in them. If Joseph's journey inspired you, don't forget to like this story and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories about courage, success, and life-changing moments. And who knows, the next story might inspire your own journey to greatness.